Zotac's handheld specs got leaked, Nvidia's April Fool's joke might be real, and Microsoft is finally ready to unite the three kingdoms. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Friday, May 31st, 2024. And as a reminder, we are still in Taipei, Taiwan, trying to get ready for the upcoming Computex event that's going to be taking place next week. It is bright and sunny today, so I'm trying to make sure I can do the best that I can in this hotel lighting room, but Zotac tried to do its best that it could to make sure that the specs of the Zotac Zone got held off to Computex, but that didn't end up happening. Video cards publishing exactly what the Zotac Zone is going to consist of, and it's a pretty nifty looking handheld. We just kind of have to wait for the price. So it's going to have the Ryzen 7 8840U, not based on the Z1 Extreme. We'll have a max 28 watt TDP, 16 gigs LPDDR5X RAM, a 512 gig SSD with a 7-inch AMOLED screen up to 800 nits brightness, which is very competitive, not quite the 1000 nits that's on the Steam Deck OLED, but a lot better than a lot of the other handhelds that are currently on the market. Some of the other notable things on top of the 120 Hz screen is the fact that it's going to have Hall effect joysticks and triggers, which is something that not many other handheld manufacturers do, as well as having 2-stage adjustable triggers on the backside to make it so that it's a little bit more immersive and you have more feedback when you're playing on the handheld. The only thing that's slightly underwhelming compared to other handhelds on the market is its 48.5 watt-hour battery. That's kind of par for the course, but we are anticipating that Asus is going to launch their ROG Ally X next week, which is going to have an 80 watt-hour battery, which could potentially put it to shame, especially when the Steam Deck has fantastic battery life, thanks to the fact that it uses Linux. So the Zotac Zone is supposed to be launching sometime in Q3. We do not know the pricing, which will likely help to indicate whether or not this is a purchase you should pick up over other devices, but it's at least off to a pretty consistent, solid start in terms of its overall spec sheet. But Spotify was off to a bad start when they announced that they were going to be canceling the Spotify car thing, and they came out after all of the backlash of people saying, oh, so you're just creating e-waste? I paid for this thing that you're not going to allow me to use anymore. And they have announced that they are going to start issuing refunds to anybody who purchased the car thing. The only difference between this and what Google did with Stadia is that you do have to submit a proof of purchase, like an email invoice, before they will refund you. With Stadia, I just got all of my refunds directly. I did not have to submit any single form, and I got all of my money back for Red Dead 2 that I paid, or for my Founders Edition controller that I picked up. So this is at least better. It would be best if they opened it up where the car thing could still be usable after the fact, and end users could figure out how to tinker with it to make it so that it works according to the way they want, instead of Spotify just shutting it down completely. But this is at least a step in the right direction. And when it comes to the RTX 5090, steps are being taken in literally every direction when it comes to what is this card going to be. This is actually one of the more convoluted rumor seasons we've had surrounding a graphics card. It hasn't been this disparate in many generations, but the RTX 5090 getting yet another revised spec sheet. Instead of having a 512-bit memory bus, it's allegedly going to have a 448-bit memory bus, which would make it slightly slower than previously suggested. Although some people have come out and said that it should have a 384-bit bus, which is very similar to what's currently on the RTX 4090. So the latest rumors are indicating that it's 14 GDDR7 modules instead of the previous amount. It's going to have 28 gigabytes of GDDR7 RAM at a total memory maximum bandwidth of 1.5 terabytes per second, as opposed to the 1 terabytes per second that we're getting on the 4090. That seems like a reasonable increase that could align with the 5090. We did have the report yesterday that the 5090 Founders Edition might be 2 slots, which seems very hard to believe considering the fact that Nvidia has just been making these things more and more power hungry, and we have seen so many pictures of a quad slot cooler. It's hard to know which direction everything's going to end up in, which is also kind of the sentiment that's happening with Nvidia G-Assist. This was an April Fool's joke that they had back in 2017. It was a USB stick that they actually ended up giving out at different events that was shaped like the Founders Edition GTX 1080, but they suggested that it was packed with artificial intelligence. Had things like Ghost Play that could play for you while the user was away, or Boss Boost that allowed you to defeat the bosses that you couldn't handle, or NV Nurture that helped you by making sure you were well fed. But the reason all of this is being brought out is because Nvidia tweeted yesterday that the future is never far away, quote tweeting their April Fool's joke from several years ago. So it seems like potentially either Nvidia is going to have more to show off when it comes to just AI assistance in gaming, kind of like what Microsoft showed off with Copilot Plus, where they'll pull data from game guides that are currently out on the internet and then make it so that's integrated into your gameplay, asking Minecraft, how do I make a pickaxe or something like that. Or additionally, one of the things that kind of was floated around was that this could be like an artificial compute stick that Nvidia might start selling as well, where you could just plug it in and then that works as the NPU for what Microsoft wants for Copilot, and potentially Nvidia might sell that. It's not quite clear. It probably will get announced at Computex with Nvidia's keynote before the event early next week. And you might think you're early to UFD Deals, but Reese has no deals for you today. He has had no deals for you all week. So make sure you let him know how much you miss him down below in the comments, and hopefully he'll come back stronger next time with more deals. And Google is hoping to come back stronger from their leaked 2,500 page document of how Google search works. This was a bombshell report that dropped earlier this week, indicating that Google might not be forthright with how they say search ends up actually working. And this 2,500 page internal document kind of showed that it was weighing certain things that they tell the public that they are not at all. Google now confirming that this is their internal document. This is not something somebody made up. This is a real, truthful document. However, they say we would caution against making inaccurate assumptions about search based on out of context, outdated, or incomplete information. We've shared extensive information about how search works and the types of factors that our systems weigh, while also working to protect the integrity of our results from manipulation. So essentially saying very little there. But one of the things Google is trying to make easier is for you to use Chrome on your mobile device. So they are now making it so that you can have minimized in-app Chrome tabs so that you can have them open while you're doing various other things on your device, where you can just bring it up, where it can be a picture-in-picture setup where you have your website in the little corner and then you can tap to bring it full screen in case you need to be doing something else while you have that Chrome page up. It's just a nice little multitasking situation that's going to be brought out for Chrome onto mobile devices. And yesterday, Sony had their State of Play where they brought out the various different things that we can expect from their gaming department over the next coming weeks and months, with some of the highlights being Sony's Astrobot is going to get its own first full-length game that's going to be coming out on September 6th to the PS5. The Until Dawn remaster is going to be coming to the PS5 and PC later this fall, and God of War Ragnarok is going to be released on PC on September 9th, including the Valhalla DLC. It will allegedly have support for 32:9 ultra-wide and have support for all three of the major upscalers of Nvidia's DLSS, AMD's FSR, as well as Intel's X-eSS. And one of the reasons that's going to happen more and more with various video games supporting all three big dogs when it comes to their upscaling tech is because Microsoft has officially launched DirectSR Preview to game developers to allow them to easily implement all of these upscaling features into their video games, especially if they're using DirectX. It's now part of the Agility Software Development Kit. This was something that is legitimately exciting for a lot of game devs in order to make it so that they don't have to choose between implementing each one. This created a lot of controversy when it came to AMD sponsored titles like Starfield, where it was only with FSR, no DLSS, that had to end up coming later. And now we should start seeing that less and less because of companies like Microsoft just making it so easy to implement in their software development kit with what seems to be a very simplified, easy solution, and that's going to have native support for it in GPU drivers, allowing for super resolution to just happen on every level. Currently, it is FSR 2.2, not FSR 3, but likely that can just get updated as time goes on, and making it so that the game devs don't have to necessarily look into all of the ways to do super resolution, and you can actually just get better frame rate on your games very easily being brought out to most of the titles. And that's one of the things that when Kyler did his re-review of the GTX 970 a decade later here in 2024, one of the things that we saw was things like FSR just makes the 970 still very capable in certain games. At 1080p high with FSR turned on, you're still getting 32 FPS in Cyberpunk. So these upscalers, these super resolutions are allowing for older cards to have more life and could potentially breathe new life into your GPU in case you've been holding on to it, which is a good thing for most people, not necessarily having to be forced into the $1,600 upgrade to get the 4090. And I got a lot of your comments yesterday, so let's go through them on yesterday's episode of Hot News. Then we got Javi saying, it's not that Brett's hair is growing faster, it's that the rest of his head is shrinking. Why is everybody talking about my hair situation? My hair doesn't grow that fast, it grows a normal amount. Then Acer saying, I love the idea of a smaller 5090. Worry they will justify the insane price by claiming SFF tax. So that actually just now brings up the idea that Nvidia was publishing those new SFF guidelines. I wonder if that could be tied to it. I personally do not think that the 5090 could possibly have a 2-slot situation, unless it's 2-slot with a liquid cooler, right? Like they're gonna do an AIO situation. I don't see it happening. I only see them getting bigger. I don't know where this 2-slot situation's coming from. I'm open to being corrected, but I'm not clear how that is possible. Then we got Suze saying, clear no one is understanding that with all the AI, the 50 series won't produce as much heat because the heat will be transported to the AI dimension where Jensen heats his several hot tubs and probably his oven. That's probably where he gets the power to bake all of those mighty graphics cards that they're making. Then QWERTY saying, bring back 8-pin connectors. Just buy AMD. If you want an 8-pin connector, go Team Red. Nvidia's never gonna do it. It's not happening. They're not going back. They're just gonna keep trying to figure out how to make things new and better. And I'm gonna figure out what we're gonna be doing for next week. Hot News will likely be very sporadic, but we do have a lot of content coming from Computech. So be sure to prepare your sub feeds for that. Everything that we've been doing here pre the Computex event will also come out next week, so you can look forward to that. I can't quite speak on it just yet, but it's been a good time that we've had here so far in Taiwan, and I will be back more next week. See you then.